And this is the last part for The Hobbit Chapter 6, Out of the Frying Pan and Into the Fire. He could hear the goblins beginning a horrible song. 15 birds in 5 fir trees. Their feathers were fanned in a fiery breeze. But funny little birds, they had no wings. Oh, what shall we do with these funny little things? Roast them alive or stew them in a pot? Fry them, boil them, and eat them hot? Then they stopped and shouted, "Fly away, little birds, fly away if you can. Come down, little birds, or you will get roasted in your nest. Sing, sing, little birds, why don't you sing?" "Go away, little boys," shouted Gandalf in answer. "It isn't bird nesting time. Also naughty little boys that play with fire get punished." He said it to make them angry and to show them he was not frightened of them, though of course he was, withered though he was. But they took no notice, and they went on singing. "Burn, burn, tree and fern, shrivel and scorch, a fizzling torch, to light the night for our delight. Yea, hey, bake and toast 'em, fry and roast 'em, till beards blaze and eyes glaze, till hair smells and skins crack, fat melts and bones black, and cinders lie beneath the sky. So dwarves shall die and light the night for our delight. Yea, hey, yea, harry, hey, yea, ho." And with that yea, ho, the flames were under Gandalf's trees. In a moment it spread to the others. The bark caught fire, the lower branches cracked. Then Gandalf climbed to the top of his tree. The sudden splendor flashed from his wand like lightning. As he got ready to spring down from on high right among the spears of the goblins, that would have been the end of him, though he would probably have killed many of them as he came hurling down like a thunderbolt. But he never leaped. Just at that moment, the Lord of the Eagles swept down from above, seized him in his talons, and was gone. There was a howl of anger and surprise from the goblins. Loud cried from the Lord of the Eagles, to whom Gandalf had now spoken. Back swept the great birds that were with him, and down they came like huge black shadows. The wolves yammered and gnashed their teeth. The goblins yelped and stamped with rage, and flung their heavy spears in the air in vain. Over them swooped the eagles. The dark rush of their beating wings smote them to the floor or drove them far away. Their talons tore at goblin faces. Other birds flew to the treetops and seized the dwarves, who were scrambling up now as far as ever they dared go. Poor little Bilbo was very nearly left behind again. He just managed to catch hold of Dory's legs, as Dory was borne off last at all, and they went together above the tumult and the burning, Bilbo swimming in the air with his arms nearly breaking. Now far below, the goblins and the wolves were scattering far and wide in the woods. A few eagles were still circling and sweeping above the battleground. The flames about the trees sprang suddenly up above the highest branch. They went up in crackling fire. There was a sudden flurry of sparks and smoke. Bilbo had escaped only just in time. Soon the light of the burning was faint below, a red twinkle on the back floor, and they were high up in the sky, rising all the time in strong, sweeping circles. Bilbo never forgot the flight, clinging onto Dory's ankles. He moaned, my arms, but Dory groaned, my poor legs, at the best of times height made Bilbo giddy. He used to turn queer if he looked over the edge of quite a little cliff, and he had never liked ladders, let alone trees, never had to escape from wolves before. So you can imagine how his head swam now, when he looked down between his dangling toes and saw the dark lands opening wide underneath him. Touched here and there was the light of the moon on a hillside, rock, or a stream in the plains. The pale peaks of the mountains were coming nearer, moonlit spikes of rock sticking out of black shadows. Summer or not, it seemed very cold. He shut his eyes and wondered if he could hold on any longer. Then he imagined what would happen if he did not. He felt sick. The flight ended only just in time for him, just before his arms gave away. He loosed Dory's ankles with a gasp and fell onto the rough platform of an eagle's eyrie. There he lay without speaking, and his thoughts were a mixture of surprise at being saved from the fire and fear lest he fell off that narrow place into the deep shadows on either side. He was feeling very queer indeed in his head by the time, after the dreadful adventures of the last 3 days, with next to nothing to eat, and he found himself saying aloud, "Now I know what a piece of bacon feels like when it is suddenly peeked off the pan on a fork and put back on the shelf." "No, you don't," be heard Dory answering, "because the bacon knows that it will get back in the pan sooner or later, and it is to be hoped we shan't. Also, eagles aren't forks." "Oh no, not a bit like stork's forks, I mean," said Bilbo, sitting up and looking anxiously at the eagle, who was perched closely by. He wondered what other nonsense he had been saying, and if the eagle would think it rude. You ought not be rude to an eagle, when you are only the size of a hobbit and are up to his eyrie at night. The eagle only sharpened his beak on a stone and trimmed his feathers and took no notice. Soon another eagle flew up. "The lord of the eagles bird you bring to your prisoner to the great shelf," he cried, and was off again. The others seized Dory in his claw and flew away with him in the night, leaving Bilbo all alone. He had just strength to wonder what the messenger had meant by prisoners, and begin to think of being torn up for supper like a rabbit when his own turn came. The eagle came back, seized him in his talons by the back of his coat, and swooped off. This time he flew only a short way. Very soon Bilbo was laid down, trembling with fear, on the side shelf of rock on the mountainside. There was no path down on it to save by flying, and no path down it except by jumping over a precipice. There he found all the others sitting with their backs to the mountain wall. The Lord of the Eagles also was there, and was speaking to Gandalf. It seemed that Bilbo was not going to be eaten after all. The wizard and the eagle lord appeared to know one another slightly, and even to be on friendly terms. As a matter of fact, Gandalf, who had been in the mountains, had once rendered a service to the eagles and healed their lord from an arrow wound. So you see, prisoners had meant prisoners rescued from the goblins only, and not captives of the eagles. As Bilbo listened to the talk of Gandalf, he realized that at last they were going to escape really and truly from the dreadful mountains. He was discussing plans with the great eagle for carrying the dwarves and himself and Bilbo far away and setting them down while on their journey across the plains below. The Lord of the Eagles would not take them anywhere near where men lived. "They would shoot at us with their great bows of yew," he said, "for they would think we were after their sheep, and at other times they would be right. No, we are glad to cheat the goblins off their sport, and glad to repay our thanks to you, but we shall not risk ourselves for dwarves in the southward plains." "Very well," said Gandalf. "Take us where and far as you will. We are already deeply obliged to you, but in the meantime we are famished with hunger." "I am nearly dead of it," said Bilbo in a weak little voice that nobody heard. "That can perhaps be mended," said the Lord of the Eagles. "Later on you might have seen a bright fire on the shelf of rocks and figures of the dwarves round it, cooking and making a fine roasting smell. The eagles had brought up dry boughs for fuel, and they had brought rabbit hairs and a small sheep. The dwarves managed all the preparation. Bilbo was too weak to help, and anyway he was not much good at skinning rabbits or cooking up meat, being used to having it delivered by the butcher all ready to cook. Gandalf, too, was lying down after doing his part in setting the fire going, since Owen and Gloin had lost their tinder boxes. Dwarves have never taken to matches even yet. So ended the adventures of the Misty Mountains. Soon Bilbo's stomach was feeling full and comfortable again, and he felt he could sleep contentedly, though really he would have liked a loaf of butter better than bits of meat toasted on sticks. He slept curled up on the hard rock more soundly than ever. He had done on his feathered bed on his own little hole at home. But all night he dreamed of his own home and wandered in his sheep into all his different rooms, looking for something that he could not find or nor remember what it looked like. And that's it. This is the last part for chapter 6. Make sure you guys answer all the questions. Thank you.